Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the public meeting with the Standing Committee on Economic Development and Environment. My name is Robert Hawkins. I am the MLA for Yellowknife Centre, as well as the chair of the committee. But before we begin, we will have members in attendance, and no one's online. So those members in attendance who will introduce themselves officially on the record, and then we'll head towards our proceedings and begin from there. So I'll begin, as always, with my far left, and we'll work our way around the room. Please.
Good afternoon. My name is George Nearsu. I'm the MLA for Mackenzie Delta.
Good afternoon, Julian Morse, MLA for Frame Lake here in Yellowknife.
Good afternoon, Danny McNeely, MLA for the Sawtooth.
Hello, folks. Thanks for joining us. I'm Kate Reed. I'm the MLA for Great Slave. Good afternoon. I'm Shauna Morgan, MLA for Yellowknife North.
And thank you again. So today we are joined by the Honourable Minister for Environment and Climate Change to receive a briefing on caribou harvesting enforcement and the 2026 winter road season. I know this is a very good subject of great interest of members of committee, including the if not millions of people who subscribe to the Legislative Assembly website every day. So that said, we're all keenly interested in what you have to say, Minister. Please, when you're ready.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. Thank you for the invitation to provide Sketty with an update on the Bathurst and Blue-Nosed East caribou management and the Tibbet to Contoido winter road season. Here with me this afternoon, I have Deputy Minister Robert Jenkins to my left, Assistant Deputy Minister Brett Elkin to my right. Do we have Janice? Online, I have Assistant Deputy Minister Janice Zeman. Also have with me Director of Wildlife Management Heather Sayin Crawford and North Slave Regional Superintendent Seth Bennett. Bearing ground caribou management is a shared responsibility and is very complex and needs to be done over the long term. In the NWT, we take an adaptive and collaborative approach that is grounded in both science and Indigenous knowledge. ECC has been working closely with co-management partners to advance a range of management actions while ensuring that Indigenous peoples continue to have opportunities to maintain their important relationship with the caribou. These actions have included collaborative work on harvest, habitat, and predator management, public education and awareness, and enhanced research and monitoring to help guide recovery efforts. As part of overall efforts, the GNWT and the Det'anchogh government are preparing new joint management proposals for management of the Bathurst and Blue-Nosed East herds within the Wikizhi. We have also worked with the Det'anchogh government, Yellowknife's Dene First Nation, and the North Slave Métis Alliance to support their monitoring and guardian programs along the Tibbet to Contoido winter road and ensure they are coordinated with our compliance and enforcement efforts. The vast majority of our harvesters abide by traditional laws, follow respectful harvesting practices, and are in compliance with GNWT legislation. But work continues to deter and investigate any potential illegal activities. Overall, I am happy with the level of compliance we saw over this year's winter road season, and we will continue to work with our partners going forward to keep illegal harvest at a minimum. I will pass over to Deputy Minister Jenkins to walk you through the presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And thank you, Minister. Deputy Minister, if you'd like to lead us through, and we're very eager, please.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. So today's presentation will cover a short background on bearing ground caribou co-management to frame our discussion, enforcement along the Tibbet to Contoido winter road in 2026, and work on the Blue-Nosed East and Bathurst bearing ground caribou joint management proposals. All of ECC's work is based on a collaborative wildlife co-management system. ECC has responsibility for the stewardship and management of caribou and their habitat, which is exercised through a co-management regime that provides direct involvement for Indigenous governments and Indigenous organizations in wildlife management. The NWT has been recognized for its well-established collaborative wildlife co-management system. In settled land claim areas, renewable resource boards have been established as the main instrument of wildlife management. In areas without a settled land claim, the GNWT engages and works with all Indigenous governments and Indigenous organizations in the spirit of co-management. There are also a number of herd-specific caribou management boards which bring together the GWT, Indigenous governments and Indigenous organizations, renewable resource boards, and traditional users from each herd. Given the complex nature of the issue and the importance of all the co-management partners to work together, we really do invest time to get things right. At our last briefing, there were questions on other barren ground caribou herds across the NWT. This is important because of seasonal overall of herds on the winter road, including overlap of the Bathurst, Bluenose East, and Beverly herds along the Tibbet to Contoito winter road. Caribou are important to the people of the NWT. Our management approach, which includes implementing actions at the herd level, depends on local and traditional knowledge from our co-management partners and ECC scientific monitoring. We manage at a herd level to try to maintain caribou across their range. We know that from both TK and science that herds have shifted historically, but we want to see herds continue to use their ranges so that people across the NWT continue to have access to caribou. For each herd, we work with our co-management partners to discuss and decide on management actions, including appropriate harvest levels, land management recommendations, and monitoring. Those discussions and decisions are based on the latest available knowledge from both traditional knowledge and science. This work brings together community members, staff from Indigenous governments, renewable resource boards, caribou management boards, and the GNBT, as well as leadership. Sorry, I'm just going to have to go back one slide to get the map back up. So just some background for committee for information. So the porcupine caribou herds range includes Alaska, Yukon, and the NWT. In the NWT, porcupine caribou are harvested by Gwich'in and Inuvialuit harvesters. The Tuktoyaktuk Peninsula herds range is in the Inuvialuit settlement region and harvested primarily by Inuvialuit harvesters from Tuktoyaktuk and Inuvik. The Cape Bathurst herds range includes the Inuvialuit settlement region and the Gwich'in settlement areas. The Cape Bathurst herd has historically been harvested by the communities of Aklavik, Inuvik, Sikachik, and Tuktoyaktuk. And the range of the Bluenose West caribou herd includes the Sawtoo, Gwich'in, and Inuvialuit settlement areas. In the Sawtoo, Bluenose West caribou are harvested primarily by the communities of Cova Lake, Fort Good Hope, and Norman Wells. The herd is harvested by the Inuvialuit communities of Paulatuk and Tuktoyaktuk, and both Gwich'in and Inuvialuit residents from Inuvik. The range of the Bluenose East caribou herd includes the Sawtoo settlement area and the Tlicho settlement area, Nunavut, in the bottom corner of the Inuvialuit settlement region. In the Sawtoo, Delaney is the primary community that harvests from the Bluenose East herd. There's also been increased harvest by Tlicho communities and other Indigenous groups in the NWT, following reductions in the Bathurst caribou harvest in 2010. In Nunavut, the Bluenose East herd is harvested by the community of Kuvuktuk. The range of the Bathurst caribou herd includes the Tlicho settlement area, with a significant part of the herd's historical range extending into areas with unsettled land claims. The herd's calving grounds are located in Nunavut. The Bathurst herd has traditionally been harvested by the Tlicho communities, the Yellowsteni, Litsuke, the Northwest Territory Métis Nation, and North Slave Métis Alliance, as well as other Indigenous groups in the NWT, Nunavut, and Saskatchewan. Resident hunters and outfitters also harvested from the Bathurst herd until 2010. The traditional range of the Beverly caribou herd includes the eastern part of the NWT and Kitikmeot region of Nunavut up to the western Quedmod Gulf area where it calves. The herd also has traditional calving grounds near Beverly Lake in Nunavut. The Beverly herd is primarily harvested by communities in the NWT, including Litsuke and the Tlicho communities. Monitoring and co-management of the herd is shared between the MAT, Nunavut, and Saskatchewan with advice from the Beverly and Kumajarik Caribou Management Board. The traditional range of the Kumajarik caribou herd straddles two territories, NWT and Nunavut, and two provinces, Saskatchewan and Manitoba. The herd calves in the vicinity of the Kumajarik Lake in the Kivalik region of Nunavut. It is traditionally harvested by Litsukideni and the Northwest Territory Métis Nation, along with the communities of the Kavalik region of Nunavut and Indigenous groups in northern Saskatchewan and Manitoba. The traditional range of the Det'anchogh caribou herd is primarily in Nunavut. However, these caribou may be harvested primarily by communities in the NBT, including Det'anchogh and the Det'anchogh communities, depending on where the herd spends the winter. The Det'anchogh caribou calve in the vicinity of the Adelaide Peninsula, eastern Queen-Maud Gulf, up to Pelly Bay, Nunavut. So we wanted to provide a little bit of background for committee on each of those herds. Wildlife management or renewable resources boards, co-management boards, have been established as the main instruments of wildlife management in areas where land claims are settled. These quasi-judicial boards function independently and make recommendations to the GNBT. Their primary role is to bring the interests of beneficiaries into decision-making processes. To do this, they also work closely with communities as well as staff and officials at the GNBT. Co-management boards use both traditional knowledge and traditional information and scientific information to make decisions. They also have the power to establish policies and propose regulations in respect of harvesting wildlife within their settlement areas. Current co-management boards set up under land claim and self-government agreements in the NWT include the Wildlife Management Advisory Council, established under the Nunavut Final Agreement, the Gwich'in Renewable Resources Board, established under the Gwich'in Comprehensive Agreement, the Sahtu Renewable Resources Board, established under the Sahtu Agreement, and the Wikizi Renewable Resources Board, established under the Det'anchogh Land Claim and Self-Government Agreement. Each board operates independently, but they also recognize that collaboration and coordination is necessary. Each claim agreement lays out the process for the GNBT and boards to work together to introduce, modify, or remove regulations in their Wildlife Act, including regulations that govern harvesting. In non-settlement regions, the co-management system provides for input and involvement by Indigenous organizations in wildlife management. Consultation obligations for wildlife management in the NWT are based on land claim and self-government agreements, Aboriginal and treaty rights, and case law. When wildlife populations cross more than one land claim area or traditional harvesting area, the approach to conservation and harvest management is more complex, and it is most effective when affected co-management boards work together to come up with a harvest management regime that is acceptable and fair to all. Each board follows their own process, at the same time coordinating with others and working towards broader agreement. The Porcupine Caribou Management Board was established in 1985. That board communicates information about the herd and provide recommendations to agencies responsible for managing the herd. The board is made up of the chair and 8 appointed members from various Indigenous governments, such as the Gwich'in Tribal Council, Natchinaik Dun, Vutuk Gwich'in, Trondak Haidek, Nunavut Game Council, Government of Yukon, Government of Canada, and GNBT. They host annual harvest meetings where ECC staff present data to be used in the board's decision on the herd's management status and associated management actions. There's also the Advisory Committee for Cooperation on Wildlife Management, and includes members, a number of members, Mr. Chair, probably best just in the notes. And that group developed the Taking Care of Caribou Management Plan, which is a management plan for the Cape Bathurst, Blue Nose West, and Blue Nose East caribou herds. Although we're not a member, the GNBT is not a member of this management board, we do attend annual status meetings to provide monitoring information alongside other partners. That the board takes that information and makes recommendations regarding wildlife and wildlife habitat issues across land claim and treaty boundaries. The Bathurst Caribou Advisory Council, formed in 2017, made up of 18 governments and organizations from the NWT, Nunavut, and Saskatchewan, representing communities that have traditionally interacted with that herd. I'm not going to list the members. It's in the information provided to the board. Finally, the Beverly and Kamijarek Caribou Management Board was established in 1982, and that consists of 8 community members from a number of different regions, Nunavut, NWT, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. They developed a management plan from 2023 to 2032, and that board meets twice a year to review and exchange information, assess and report on the implementation of the management plan, and make recommendations the board deems appropriate to public or Indigenous governments. All of these co-management conversations ultimately lead to management actions that we can take across Barren Ground Caribou range of the NWT on specific herd ranges or in particular areas with communities. Obviously, we need buy-in from communities, and we need to work with everyone to make the best decisions we can for caribou. So now shifting to some information on our winter road season. So this year, the department continued maintaining a presence on the Tibbet to Contito Winter Road. The winter road opened on February 14th and closed on April 10th, and our officers began patrolling the area as construction advanced from mid-January through to road closure in mid-April. ECC staff operated out of 2 winter road maintenance camps and mobilized 2 ECC patrol stations, 1 at Gordon Lake and 1 at McKay Lake, as part of the 2026 Tibbet to Contito Winter Road season. Over the course of the season, ECC had approximately 5 officers and casual patrol persons on the winter road for 10-hour days, 7 days a week. Their work included sharing information with harvesters on the location of the mobile core Bathurst Caribou Management Zone, as well as conducting regular patrols and compliance checks via truck, snowmobile, and helicopter. ECC continues to support and work with Indigenous-led monitoring and guardian programs, including the North Slave Métis Alliance, Yellowknives Dene First Nation, and the Det'anchogh government. Information was exchanged between monitors, guardians, and officers on the winter road, leading to better coordination. We also continue to implement joint public education campaigns to reinforce safe, legal, and respectful harvesting. We also worked with guardians and monitors to support their monitoring of the health of caribou along the winter road. ECC is currently reviewing operations from the 2026 season to assess successes and identify lessons learned, and this work will help improve our operations for the 26-27 winter season. The need to continue to work with co-management partners on enhancing collaborative public information campaign promoting safe and respectful harvesting will continue into the next season. Officers will continue to investigate ongoing cases and any new reports of illegal harvest or wastage. We were pleased to take several members of the Standing Committee up on a winter road tour this year on March 23rd, and committee members visited the ECC camps and met with officers in the field and hopefully gained a better understanding of the complexities of monitoring on the winter road. We also continue to support and work with Indigenous-led monitoring and guardian programs, including the NSMA, YKDFN, and the Det'anchogh government. Information was exchanged between monitors, guardians, and officers on the winter road, leading to better coordination. We also continue to implement joint public education campaigns, and we work with guardians and monitors to support their monitoring of the health of caribou along the road. We understand that there is a desire from committee to know as much information as possible regarding investigations. Wastage and illegal harvesting are unacceptable and undermine co-management efforts to conserve caribou. But as we have said before, when cases are under active investigation, we are limited in the information we can share, not just to committee or the public, but with anyone. Disclosing details during investigations could jeopardize those investigations and any associated legal processes. We can share that we had one investigation of illegal harvesting in the mobile zone this past season, where one caribou was illegally harvested. In addition, we opened 4 investigations of potential wastage outside of the mobile zone, involving parts of approximately 11 caribou. There was also one investigation of 2 wounded caribou, again outside of the mobile zone. Overall, our open investigations include 14 caribou. We were, however, pleased to observe that the vast majority of activity this past season involved harvesters harvesting respectfully and in compliance with the Wildlife Act and both the big game and mobile zone regulations. In terms of work ongoing with respect to joint management proposals, right now ECC staff are working on joint management proposals for the Bluenose East and Bathurst Barren Ground Caribou herds. These joint management proposals are a requirement of the Det'anchogh Final Agreement, and we will continue to work with staff from the Det'anchogh government to develop these proposals, which include the latest available information on the herds and proposed management actions related to harvest, habitat and land use, public education, and monitoring and research. The Bluenose East Joint Management Proposal is expected to be submitted to the Wikizzi Renewable Resources Board later this summer. The board will determine the type of public review for the proposal and inform the public accordingly. The GNBT and Det'anchogh government will work collaboratively through the review process, which ends with determinations and recommendations from the board. ECC and Det'anchogh government staff will also work to develop a joint management proposal for the Bathurst herd and submit that proposal to the board. It's expected in January of 2027. So, Mr. Chair, with that, we appreciate the care and attention the committee has put into barren ground caribou management, and that ends our presentation, and happy to take questions.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. I will now go to MLA Morris first for questions. I appreciate the briefing, and I'm sure the public is finding it very interesting as well. So, MLA Morris, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really more of a comment, but I just wanted to say, I appreciate the department putting so much time into briefing us this year. I know we've had a lot of big conversations, and I asked a lot of my questions at our last briefing, and really appreciate them coming to give us this follow-up. I'm very happy to see how comparatively few investigations there were this year compared to last year, and really appreciated the department taking a committee out to the Winter Road to see the operation in person earlier this spring. Really appreciated seeing it on the ground. I've seen it myself as a hunter, but it was great to see as a committee member and just sit down with wildlife officers and chat with them on the ground about what they're seeing and what they're experiencing, and really appreciate the work of our wildlife officers. And it does seem apparent to me that through the co-management, through the work we're doing with the Indigenous governments, through the work that we're doing with the co-management boards, that we are moving in the right direction. And I think, what prompted at least me wanting some of these briefings was just that I've heard from constituents. There was a year, I think it was last year, that things weren't as good. There was definitely a pretty public case of wastage, and people really care about caribou in this territory. And I think staff are well aware of that, and I think staff care about caribou a lot too. So, I just appreciate the department's follow-up on this. I'm glad to see the numbers continue to go down. I think we all hope that we get to a point of zero wastage investigations and zero illegal harvesting. That's certainly the goal. I know that's the department's goal. So I don't have any hard-hitting questions for this Friday afternoon, but just wanted to thank staff for their work. And I hope committee will continue to monitor this issue, because it's certainly one that's top of mind for residents of the Northwest Territories. Actually, you know what? I just realized I have a question, so sorry. I talked myself into a question. I do note that sorry, it's been a long, short week already, Mr. Chair. I do want to speak about the recent government announcement, the federal government announcement, of course, the Arctic Economic Security Corridor, and I'm curious to hear from departmental staff how they are preparing for that in the context of caribou and how important caribou are, how significant roads are to caribou impacts, and how significant the Winter Road has been to caribou, and how they're going to be moving forward to protect caribou, knowing that we are going to be promoting an all-season road in that region now. Sorry, that was a long one, Mr. Chair.
No, it's okay. It was actually kind of funny. You've got a process, and I'm
Yeah.
going to say, that's all I'm going to say. Minister, if you wanted to start with that and
Certainly.
delegate if necessary,
Yeah,
please.
thank you very much. And, maybe just a little bit on the earlier comment about, the number of investigations we had last year compared to this year. We're certainly, myself as well as I know everyone that supports me in this work is very happy with the reduction in number, and ideally, we'd love to see it go to zero. I mean, that would be the perfect case scenario for sure. So I think our officers did a tremendous job on the winter road this season, along, working hand in hand with the Guardians. And, I mean, it's a huge area, right, that they're attempting to cover. So, I have to really give a lot of gratitude toward the work that was done there. I think we've certainly had many, many conversations about the Arctic Energy Security Corridor project that's coming, and as well as Mackenzie Valley Highway, a different, obviously, situation. But, we've been working on a number of policy documents and pieces that we're contributing to the development of those major projects to ensure that we are considering all aspects of caribou habitat management and the long time, conservation of the caribou. So that's certainly been top of mind. But I'll pass to Deputy Minister Jenkins to provide a little bit more detail. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I appreciate that, Minister. Deputy Minister, if you would, a little further, that question?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. As the minister mentioned, we've been doing a lot of work on this issue. I mean, we are involved internally in sort of the project sort of design and how things are done. We have caribou biologists that are in our division that sort of work on some of these aspects. We've also been developing several sort of best management practices type documents. One is specific to barren ground, caribou, and roads, and we hope to release that very soon in the near future. And again, for comment and really wanting to put information out there for developers, because of course, government in these instances is advancing a road development, but others may as well. And so we want to really sort of have some information out there that people can utilize early stages in planning and design. Of course, we're going to continue our monitoring programs. That's really important in any sort of project assessment and the information that we do and the surveys that we do. But as the minister mentioned, we're trying to do some work to really provide guidance in how, if linear infrastructure is developed, how it can be done in such a way that caribou are maintained. And obviously, the importance of caribou is very high to everybody when those projects are assessed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that. I suspect Ms. MLA Morris would like further, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll keep this one a lot more brief. Appreciate the chair's indulgence here. Just further to the linear disturbance issue, I mean, I know there's been a fair bit of success with the shooting restriction on the Ingham Trail, for example, that came about as a result of a particularly hairy hunting year all those years back when I was a kid. And I'm just wondering, I mean, with something like an all-season road, I mean, is the department looking into the possibility of similar rules around kind of a no hunting corridor, just sort of with the mobile zone is kind of responded to the Bathurst here, but I'm wondering if something along the lines of what the mobile zone has done, just establish a no hunting area just along the corridor of the road, just to ensure that kind of opportunistic hunting or road-based hunting isn't happening, and that hunters are going out and practicing best practice and ensuring that the corridor itself isn't an area of concentrated hunting. I'm just curious if they've thought that through yet.
Thank you. Just looking for a volunteer. Minister?
Sure.
Please.
Yeah, maybe I'll start and then pass to Deputy Minister Jenkins. So we did have the voluntary no shooting 3-kilometer corridor this winter on the winter road. So I'm not at the table during these conversations with the management group, so I'll pass to Deputy Minister to provide some more detail on the bigger project.
Thank you so much, Minister. Deputy Minister, please, if you would.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I think we haven't gotten to a place yet where those specific sort of actions for that road, I mean, they're at this point, I understand they're still really looking at the routing, of that road. But I think that this is possibly a tool that could be utilized, on a go forward that would need to be considered. There's other options. Again, if Caribou are coming close to the road, how do we make sure that, perhaps they can cross safely, that they're not disturbed? In an all-season road situation, there could be more flexibility to having the road closed during periods of the year when caribou are migrating. So we haven't had that level of conversation on some of the, in particular on the ASC, because the ASC is really still more on the front end of deciding where it will be placed. But these are some of the tools, and I think, management tools in terms of, do we need to have a no hunting corridor extend, up into that area along the road? Is that needed? Is it not needed? I think, when we look at the routing and have a better sort of understanding of the traffic and other sort of safety concerns that could be raised, then that's definitely a tool that needs to be considered. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And thank you for that. I would just make a side comment, is creating rules that we can't enforce. I mean, it becomes very frustrating, and if you extend the corridor, it may mean well, but that said, how do you monitor it? Do we have some hunter out there with a measuring tape as they're walking into the bush, So I'd just say be practical and pragmatic, of course. MLA Reid, I believe you are next, and followed by MLA Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, pardon me. And thank you for the presentation. I'm going to change topics slightly, although I'm sure there are many more questions about future roads, future disturbances around the table. I just want to take us back a few years and maybe just ponder aloud, because I don't know what the co-management boards and the Caribou boards discuss in detail. I'm glad that you gave us a really excellent breakdown of sort of the areas of responsibility. But back during the COVID years, it was my understanding, sort of through just general conversation, that, and from the conversation in the 19th Assembly, that because of the pressures of the pandemic on people financially, and throughout those years of financial difficulties, that socioeconomic factors might have come into play. People harvesting more, people trying to spend less money on high grocery bills, and going out and harvesting more, and perhaps harvesting questionably. So I'm curious, does the department monitor socioeconomic factors as it comes to illegal harvest? Is there work being done on that? Is it something that we should be paying attention to in the future, especially as gas prices increase, that sort of thing? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Appreciate that. Looking for a volunteer. Deputy Minister, if you would, to MLA Reid's question.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the question. I think it's a great one. I don't think that we've been necessarily looking at economic conditions and sort of cross-referencing that with, whether there's increased hunting activity or cases of illegal harvest. So that's something that we'll have to take away and think about on a go forward. But I do agree with you that, high costs right now for groceries and other things, we do expect that people would perhaps look to, going out on the land and hunting and fishing and gathering to offset some of those costs. Of course, as we all know, there's other costs with going out on the land, fuel and others, and those are also high. But we definitely do expect that with the price of groceries that we're all experiencing right now, that people, if there are animals in the vicinity, that they would likely look to go and source and go hunting. One of the things that I would say is that there has been a no hunting mobile zone on the Bathurst Caribou, and the harvesting that is happening up the Winter Road is harvesting, we feel, primarily from the Beverly herd. And that herd did see an increase from approximately 100,000 animals to about 150,000 animals over a 5-year period. I think the most recent results were put out within the last year. So we do see that most of the harvesting that's occurring now, we expect that it is coming from that herd, the Beverly herd. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Moving on to MLA Morgan, followed by Narasu, and then McNeely. So MLA Morgan, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So maybe I'll start by just thanking you again for having us do the tour in person of the Winter Road and some of the enforcement and monitoring operations we can see for ourselves. I think it does help put in perspective, how this actually gets done or enforced, when push comes to shove at the end of the day. Because I think, we talk a lot about high-level processes, management groups, documents, reports, plans, representatives from various groups that meet and talk and talk and talk and talk. But at the end of the day, it comes down to what people are doing on the ground. And one thing that I noticed, but maybe you can provide some insight on the ground, is that there still seem to be challenges with all of the different co-management partners effectively collaborating or working together on a practical level for the compliance and enforcement. I understand it might be relatively new, like each group seems to have set up their own little trailer or sort of home base, and there's, a few people from each group that are out there. But certainly put into perspective, when you are out there, it's a very remote place, very remote location, very few people, tough conditions to operate in, and relatively little, equipment. And so the more that groups can actually be sharing available resources, equipment, working together, pooling their energy, time, resources, and even just, like communicating well with each other. Hey, I saw this, or this is what I was told, or would, obviously be ideal. I wonder if you can comment on if some of those challenges are being worked through. I know ECC is not the only one with staff out there, but what is being done to try to ensure more effective communication, coordination on the ground to ensure that enforcement and monitoring is the best it can be? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
For that. Minister, if
I can take this one after you.
you don't have to fight over it,
Yeah.
I'm willing to give everybody time at the mic.
Yeah, no, I think we've made a lot of progress over the last number of years in bringing our groups together, and I know I've been a big advocate for the Guardian program and incorporating that into our enforcement work. And I think, I'm sure between Seth and Robert, they can talk about, joint training, exercises, and different things that we're doing working together. So bringing all the groups and not doing it sort of piecemeal. And I think we've invested, resources into supporting the Guardian programs amongst our Indigenous partners. So that, really sort of brings all of those tools together. And I think we've really improved that working relationship significantly over the last while. So with that sort of preamble, I'll pass it off to
Deputy Minister, if you would help us.
Yeah, I think the minister hit the nail on the head. We've invested a lot in this. I think it's really improved over the past few years. I think there's still areas for improvement, for sure. And we are having, debrief meetings with each of the Indigenous governments. How can we do things better together? They are setting up their own locations. I feel that in some ways brings a little bit of a level of comfort for their members to go and speak, with their Indigenous government a bit more directly. Again, we're trying to have more meetings with them. We're trying to sort of go out together. We're trying to improve all these pieces. Unfortunately, when we did our tour this year, there was a little bit of a the winter road closure date moved up abruptly on us. So, when we went out, there was actively, these other groups were taking down and sort of getting things and moving things out. So, it's unfortunate that we didn't get to see it where they were probably more focused on some of the monitoring. But I think, on a go forward, we're committed to sort of working with them. The other thing that I would say is this not only, boots on the ground. The minister has made really strong connections with other Indigenous leaders, and they have been sending out joint messaging and on respectful harvesting, and that's been very powerful. And I think that has also contributed to what we've seen this year in terms of some reduced numbers of areas of concern. And, we're seeing this year, we saw very respectful harvesting by most people who are out there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that, Deputy Minister. MLA Morgan, would you like to continue, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have a number of more questions here, but maybe for now, in your presentation, you referenced that a joint management proposal for the Bathurst herd is being worked on in collaboration with the Det'anchogh government to be submitted to the WRRB in January 2027. There's a lot of different terminology with lots of different documents and plans, but what is that meant to add to, for example, the Bathurst Range Management Plan, which is already in place for a number of years, and some of the other plans that already exist? What is going to be new or different? What's the value added of a joint management proposal? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. ADM, you're on. Oh, no, mics are controlled by the great staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the reason we started doing these is following the implementation of the Clecho land claim agreement. So any management actions that occur within the Wikiji require you to submit a plan. So it's fulfilling the obligations under the land claim. How do they fit together? I think you raised a good point. We have all sorts of collaborative developed tools that give us advice, whether it's the range plan or the herd management, which are intended to guide all decision makers. Because the range of the Bathurst and Blue Nose East, particularly the Bathurst that historically went down to Saskatchewan, those decisions makers may be GWT, they may be government of Nunavut, they may be government of Saskatchewan. In this case, now we have the Clecho government is a decision maker. So through their processes, what the value added is we look and say within Wikiji, how are we going to apply those tools? Knowing that they are a decision maker, we use those tools that you talk about to guide us. So really nothing that shows up in the management proposal is inconsistent with there. Really what it is within this area, which can be different than Nunavut or northern Saskatchewan, how do we best apply those things that are in the recovery strategy or the herd management plan within this area? So really, if you really compare them side by side, it's just very detailed how do we apply those principles from the plans within this geographic area. One only other thing I would add in that long-winded answer is we do it with TG because it's under the land claim. They prefer joint management proposals. The range of the herd in the winter also goes outside Wikiji. So despite the fact it's a joint management proposal, we work very closely with the Yellowknives, the North Slave Métis Alliance. Other Indigenous governments where if you go up the Winter Road and you head east, that's on outside of the Clecho land claim. So we make sure that what we put in is consistent, even though it's a joint management proposal, we make sure we're talking to our partners to make sure it reflects that reality. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I appreciate that. Thank you. We've got a team that takes care of this.
I know, I'll keep my hands off.
All right. As long as you're good with the numbers in the studies. I now have MLA Narasu followed by MLA McNeely. Mr. Narasu, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Is there any studies to show that these winter roads or mines have had a negative impact on the population of caribou in the affected area? Because in my region, we have the Dempster Highway that goes right through the migration route, and it has a negative impact on the caribou, if they ever pass, we don't get haven't gotten any much caribou over the past maybe 5 years, I guess, seen any caribou coming past our area. They have promotion of let the leaders pass, but once somebody sees that, then they go right up to, they hunt. We asked for road closures during migration routes. We've worked with ENR, tried to find some solution on, because it's always stated if they go past, then we'll have caribou for the winter, but they don't even make it to the highway, and they turn around and go back north. We've requested road closures during migration, no hunting during migration. We've requested. You talk about traditional knowledge. All these were asked by elders of our community. They have easy access to caribou because of this road that was opened in the 1970s. And, the porcupine caribou too, I know about the other caribou herds, but they often talk about, they don't talk about it, collared caribous, and it's right on social media. You just have to go in there. They say caribou is coming close to the highway, and people just go there and wait for them. I myself have requested to PCMB that they shut these sites off during migration routes so they can actually make it past, but to no avail. You say you work with the communities, affected communities, you work with our management boards, but I don't think so, because we've put in this request for road closures, no hunting zones, but still today there's nothing. We have no caribou. I'm just wondering if these winter roads or mines have had any negative effect on the population of these caribous in this area, because it did in our area, and it's evident. You don't need a study to show that. You just have to drive up there when they usually go by. You don't see any caribou. So I'm just wondering how much of an impact these mines and roads have had in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister, did you want to start with that?
Sure, thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, there have been certainly a lot of work done under the best management practices envelope, if you will, or file, over the years. So there's a lot of that work that's been done across all of the herds and informs a lot of the work that's done with the boards. But I'll pass to Deputy Minister Elkin maybe to speak a little bit more toward how the board process works.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Appel. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I watched that time. Just to add on a little bit, and then we'll see if the deputy thinks I missed anything and wants to jump in. I think one of the keys to understanding potential impact of anything that happens on the range, whether it's harvesting or development, I think that's where we put our focus on monitoring the herds, both ourselves and working with our partners. The Clecho government have boots on the ground to look at how caribou are using the landscape and how they're responding to features on the landscape. Working with industry to have very specific measures for when caribou are in the area, to monitor the response of caribou. There's been some academic research done to look at response of caribou to both physical, like roads, but sensory disturbance. So that helps us understand the impacts that they may be contributing, knowing that we know there's multiple factors that are impacting the caribou herds. And I think where we've really worked closely with industry and with our Indigenous partners is on some of these preventive measures. One of the key documents, I should let the minister and the deputy proudly share this one, is just starting to go out for engagement, but we have a new guidelines for development of roads on caribou habitat, and it's based on many, many years of reports on experiences with the roads on caribou habitat, whether that's by government, but it's by Indigenous governments, by researchers, by mines themselves, and done with industry to really say, here's what we know, and here's the measures we need to do to really minimize the impact that we may be having out there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Minister, you would like to add?
Yeah, thank you very much. So the guideline that the ADM has spoke to is a document that will be coming out the next couple of weeks and will be put out for public engagement. So it'll be available to everyone to be able to have input and comment on that, so. But did you have any? Yes.
I would encourage you to maybe ensure committee is copied by the letter, and whether we engage it on it or not, at least it can hit our radar for information, and then we can decide if committee wants to discuss it further or take it as information.
Happy to do that.
So I appreciate you sending it. Please, no, you're good. Okay. Next I have Emily McNeely. And also maybe just before I speak to him, Minister, I know you had to go. Do we have a close time, or in the sense of tightness for you?
I'm fine. I decided I'm not driving home, so.
Okay.
We're
then.
good. Yeah.
Sorry you made that public. I guess we're gonna keep
I'm good for 7 more minutes.
it. We've already locked the doors. So, okay, that, not to say we're gonna drag it on unnecessarily, but I appreciate the fact that you're available. Okay. Emily McNeely.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll take 3 of the 7. Mine's more of a comment here because, we heard your report from last year, winter's activities, and the monitoring has gone well compared to some of the previous stories I heard on what goes on out there from people from this end, and same thing from Delaney when they go down to Hodda Lake. So you hear stories on the amount of animals that are just left behind. So it's good to hear that things are improving, that this, like you said, it's still very in the early stages of consultation, monitoring, and I'm quite certain we're gonna have more of these discussions as the road activity becomes a reality, but there's different conditions on that report that our government can impose on the developer. For example, rather than having a 2-to-1 slope, you can have a 6-to-1, so that it gradually comes up to the surface, not being so steep for the animals. And some of the other things that the construction world makes is really open to suggestions, is rather than having big boulders for your for your base and sub-base material levels, have it smaller on the slopes, so the hooves aren't getting stuck in between the big boulders. So those are just a couple of examples that we as a government, at the time of issuance, after a report is done, but in the meantime, we can investigate these options available to mitigate and accommodate our animals during rutting season and migration season and harvesting season. So I just share that comment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. It is a comment, but Minister, if you had wanted to respond or continue with other types of questions. Minister?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make a couple of comments here. So I think that, the level of monitoring that goes on the winter road is pretty consistent year to year. I think the difference from last year to this year is the fact that we've had a lot more respectful harvesting than we had perhaps the year before. With the fewer number of cases or investigations that we actually ended up having. But I think, as we look at road construction and the options going forward, I think this is all part of the considerations to ensure that we are creating the most favorable conditions for the caribou. So there will be many aspects of that file as we move forward through this whole process that will be considered. So thank you very much for the comment.
No, thanks. Not seeing anything further, I have Emily Morgan who would like to get back on or get into the queue again, and you're the only person right now. So please, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you've talked about, I'm eager to see the guidance document that is about to come out in terms of best practices in the design of roads. The question for me is whether just how you design the road is always good enough, or at what point, in order to protect the caribou, we just stop building more roads? Or what is the threshold past which, more linear disturbance or roads is too much, and no matter how you try to build them, or if you build the little bridges, or, it's just too many roads. At some point, maybe there's too many roads. Or it's the road is through the wrong place. And so, do any of the tools that we have help tell us not just how to build roads better, but when not to build a road at all when it comes to, the minimum that we need to do to protect a caribou herd? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Deputy Minister, I believe you've been tasked with that question. Please, unless we're getting ahead of that proposal, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I mean, that's a big question. I think in any, the best management practices document is really sort of if you're designing a road and you're going to operate a road, here's the sort of the best practices to do that so that we, reduce or have no impact on caribou is the goal, or that we have very little impact, that it's not a significant one. And so there's that end of it. There's also, of course, every project that goes through, likely a linear disturbance is very likely to, such as a road, go through an environmental assessment. And there would be a look at some of the broader aspects that you're talking about, the cumulative impacts of that road on caribou. It would look at reasonably foreseeable developments that may occur because of that road. If a road is built, it's one thing, but the road is being built to perhaps support development, and what is the impacts of those developments and the road. So sort of there will be things that will be looked at through those assessment processes. And then the goal of that process then is to say, if this project were to occur, what are the mitigations in place to make sure we don't have a significant effect? And, for a project like the Arctic and Energy Security Corridor, we would expect that caribou would be a very large question in that assessment, and looking at a number of the things that you mentioned. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Emily Morgan, further?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you talked about environmental assessment being the proper time to be looking at these cumulative impacts. But the problem is that environmental assessment always looks at one project at a time. And so the board that's doing an environmental assessment can't necessarily, deny one project just based on what potential future projects might, grow off of it or be sparked. I mean, they'd have to look at what's before them, what is the definition of the project before them. And then there's the challenge of, death by 1,000 cuts. If the next assessment is looking at one tiny thing and it's like, well, is this going to make it that much worse? Or it's not going to make that much of a difference. And then they're only looking at the next tiny little impact and the next one. I guess my bigger question is, do you think environmental assessments does effectively look at cumulative impacts? And if not, what is the proper forum to be looking at the big picture, to look at the impact of many projects all together, all at once, and to actually make decisions about that? I know we monitor, but because each environmental assessment is just looking at one project at a time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that. Deputy Minister, if you would assist committee with that answer.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would say that an environmental assessment of a project is robust and can look at reasonably foreseeable things that would happen as a result of that project. I think that we've had examples of projects previously that's been looked at, and they've looked at other pieces. Will there be another pit developed for this mine? Will there be other aspects? I think as we go forward, an environmental assessment can cover the questions that you're asking in terms of, but they are predictive. It will have to say, we're building a road. We expect that we're building this road because we want other developments in the region. What other developments are reasonable? We would expect that there could be several mines over the next 10 years, 20 years. The board will have to sort of have this discussion when it scopes its environmental assessment, but it very much can look at some of those questions as it goes through. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Not having anyone further, I just want to build on a couple of questions that have been asked. I'm going to squeeze a quick, easy couple. It sort of blends MLA Morgan's question and MLA Narasu's question, which is, you know, maybe it's this simple sometimes to start out by asking, and this isn't the question per se, but this is sort of the question to the question, which is the road the problem or is the access that it creates the problem? So MLA Narasu points out that the road provides access so everyone can pull up in their trucks and with their fancy guns and whatever machinery, and they can pick off the caribou as they, you know, go by, to the point that they either figure out don't go in that area, or it's just death, you know, like they're all gone. Or, you know, versus in equal consideration, MLA Morgan's point of view is, you know, how much is enough stress? I'm calling it stress in my words. I'm not speaking for her, but I'm saying, you know, is there that much stress because of the activity? So is the road the problem or is it the access? Because MLA Narasu proposed if we shut the road down during certain periods, maybe we permit access. In other words, fuel can go by, but nobody but a fuel truck, you know, but just regular. So anyway, the thought of that, is the road the problem or the continued access the problem? Who would like to take that? Deputy Minister?
Yeah, you know, thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, what I would say to this is that, you know, each one would have to be looked at. So what are the challenges with the road? I mean, MLA McNeely talked about Caribou and grade and being able to walk over the road. So there's aspects where the road and the design itself needs to be done in such a way that doesn't impair or harm caribou migration. Then there is also the question of access. So now we have a road that is or isn't closed to the public. We have an interest from members of the public to harvest, and is making it easier to harvest having an impact. So that would need to be looked at. And if the decision is yes, it actually is, then what are the mitigations to do that? Is it as Member Morse mentioned, instituting a no hunting corridor? Would that mitigate it? Is it having a period of time where it's not open for harvest? Would that mitigate it? So you would have to sort of look at each piece. And so I would say that I think both aspects need to be looked at. The road itself as a linear feature, and also the access to the road by things like trucks and hunters and other pieces that may have an impact on caribou. I hope that provides some additional context, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I wasn't expecting we'll call it a crystal clear answer. I know it's complicated and it takes almost a lifetime even just to get a sense of what's going on as opposed to, but I view it as they're walking over the road, and I've seen caribou walk, and it's like no big deal. But I can appreciate the stress of the over and over and over again. And although it's been a while since I've done any hunting, but I would say I can imagine if 20 trucks are sitting there going pew pew, it has an impact, and you've made it easy for them. So the cumulative impact. So anyway, I'm just trying to make a sense of maybe the road isn't the problem, but the road creates the problem. In other words, that's what I'm trying to say. Just a couple other things. I know in the House I'd asked the minister, sometimes we have harvesting challenges. So in other words, meat wastage. And I think the minister had committed about, I talked about it in the context of maybe people either misunderstand or misuse on their harvesting techniques, et cetera. And would there be a good way of getting out to do some education? I was recently in the Inuvik area. I know my eyes are getting old. I had, just north of Inuvik, I had spotted a caribou that was harvested on, well, I wouldn't call this harvested, I'd say decimated, on the side of the road. I'd found out, people had already been talking about it in the community, so it had already made its way through the channel, so I didn't personally report it, knowing that people had already, from the sounds of people had already did. Some folks I talked to had said it, you know, there's so little there that's being picked away. I can appreciate the investigation gets complicated. That said, can you give me a context of what is it, you know, like, what do you do in that case? It's a two-part question, but the first is, what do you do in that case? Because I think it's important to sidestep, to give context. Someone had asked me, if someone cuts their leg bracelet off, you know, the monitoring one in the run, why does the government spend enormous amount of money to chase them? And the important thing is you chase them to the end of the earth to get them, to show everyone, this is what happens, nobody gets away. And I'm just curious on the context of resources committed to catching people, to ensure that we send the right message that if you're doing this, we are going to pursue you because this matters as a policy. And that's the kind of context I'm trying to provide. And I'm seeing lots of nods. I hope people appreciate what I'm getting at is, can you give us a sense of what type of resources and how you approach these problems? Thank you. Superintendent Vanette, got you on the mic.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. It's a really good question as well. With regards to instances where wastage is being either identified by our officers in the field or reported to our officers in the field, every one of those instances triggers an occurrence and an investigation on our end. So if somebody reports it or we find it, we inspect it first to determine whether or not there actually is wastage. In many instances, we'll get calls to say that wastage has occurred, and officers will attend the scene and identify that the parts or the remains that are found are not prescribed parts under the legislation, and there actually is not wastage occurring. That does happen quite frequently, but there are, of course, instances where parts that are prescribed in the legislation are found, where individuals have left it behind. And in those instances, our methodology is to try and determine whether or not, or if there is any evidence available that can indicate who may be the responsible party. Again, given the nature of the environment we're working in, it's not a very easy task to accomplish. We typically will scan the area for other individuals to see if there's any witnesses. We'll check our records to determine whether or not we've observed anybody in the area in the near recent past. Oftentimes, we may put calls out to the public for requests for information. There's several tools that we can use to try and advance the investigation. Depending on the remains that are found and how quickly we can get to them, there may be an opportunity to actually salvage some of that meat and make it available to others and put it to other uses. But again, most of the time, again, that's not something that we can do because we can't guarantee the safety of that animal for consumption. We typically will retain it. We may take samples to help in an investigation if other information becomes available in the future. And we typically keep those case files open. I believe the legislation allows us to keep that file open for 2 years. We do everything we can to try and identify the individuals responsible, but it is proving very challenging given the nature of the environment we work in. Our primary focus, to be completely candid, is on ensuring education and awareness to prevent it from happening in the first place. That's where we work with our Indigenous partners through our respected harvesters forums and the education and outreach that we do in communities and with our Indigenous partners is to try and make sure everybody understands what are those prescribed parts that are required to be taken, how best to butcher an animal and make sure you salvage what it needs to be salvaged and make use of what you harvest.
Thank you. And you dovetailed into my next piece, which was asking about education. And I'm hopeful the ECC will find a way to maybe work with the Department of EC&E Although I'm speaking to my age, although I'm not the oldest person in the room, but as a person who grew up in Fort Simpson, it was normal to, in biology class, that they would teach you how to skin a rabbit or deal with a duck or things like that. And now that's different than a caribou, but that said, if we're having problems with these types of initiatives, and people are no longer living the traditional lifestyle of hunting and trapping and passing on those, say, mentorship skills and relationship, but someone still tries to create the activity in their lifestyle, they may not be harvesting them in the most efficient way. And it's not that they're bad people, it's just they don't have the practice skills and mentorship. I would like to see ECC look at ways of getting into the schools, getting the middle grades and older working with things, whether it's a couple are harvested a couple per year and the kids brought in and said, hey, this is how we do this together and we're going to make an event of it. I've never seen any kid go away and go, oh my goodness, math or doing something like this. They always pick this and it's exciting. And whether it's even middle ages or even sooner, I would encourage the minister to find a way to make these interactive with folks. And if their skills, like I said, mentorship isn't being passed on as it used to be or as common as it was, this is a great way to help revive this relationship. And let's be frank, caribou is an important thing in the Northwest Territories, including symbolism. So Minister, I go to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So maybe I could speak briefly to my community. So I know and I do know that our ECC officers are involved in the work that the school does in Fort Smith. So they do camps with the elementary school kids where they take them out to Tabachah, which is a small community just outside of Fort Smith. And they do a multitude of different camps there. They'll do muskrat, they may do beaver. The high school has a winter camp program where high school kids go out on the land. Again, our officers are typically involved in that. They also have other programs right within the facility at the elementary school there where they have a cultural area where they do different activities throughout the year. So from the perspective of my community, I can kind of give you a little bit of an overview of some of the activities. I can't speak directly to the other communities across the territory, but I'll pass to the Deputy Minister. It's really important for us to be involved, and we've had a tremendous, in other roles that I've been in, ECC has been very involved in that area and very willing to do that work with the schools.
Deputy Minister, yeah, if you have something small to add, I think we're going to run till 3 o'clock. So, but if you had something from an educational point of view that you can partner and make it bigger and more impactful, I'd be really curious. But that said, if you don't have anything, please, it's up to you. Deputy Minister?
All I would say just quickly, Mr. Chair, is that our officers are involved in schools, across the territory, and I agree with your point. My daughter is in grade 8, and she very much enjoys the days where she's dealing with ducks or rabbits or those types of things. So it is definitely something that we do. I think we're working with the co-management partners as well on respectful harvesting campaigns. And in the past there were different things, educational tools on how to process animals and things, and that is something that we need to consider as a department on a go-forward basis. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. And I would say that half the environmental movement was because of kids, in the sense that they shamed us to be smarter, and we woke up, Not singularly, but they're very powerful, those young voices. The only other question I have, and then I'll go to any committee member at the very end, is I believe ECC was running a wolf harvesting incentive program. And I'm not looking for an expanded response, but if you had a brief one or if you wanted to follow up in writing, but the question really is ECC was doing some analysis over the 5-year management program. When are we expecting it to be completed in the sense of compiled and a bit of data to consider the success or non-success, et cetera? It's findings ultimately. Minister, your thoughts on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll pass to ADM Elkin.
ADM, if you would, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just checking with the expert who's working on it, and they say we expect to see a report to come up through the system in September, October? So this fall, we should have it to move up to release.
Okay, so we can probably expect something later.
A little bit later.
Okay, no, fair enough.
Thank you.
Committee, that brings, I don't have anyone else with questions, and we're just, I think people need to sneak off at 3, so we'll just, at this point, not seeing any last-minute pleas to get on the record. That said, Minister, I want to thank you for the information today. It was a detailed presentation, but we also, it's an important one, and I suspect this won't be the last time we talk about Caribou, at least I hope not. But that said, if we have more questions, we'll reach out to the department, and we'll get you here before committee. I'd like to thank you personally, including our millions of subscribers. We follow this very closely with great interest. That's it. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and committee. It's always a pleasure to come and present to you, and I think that, you know, Caribou are really key to who we are in the Northwest Territories, so continuing to have this conversation is a really positive one, so thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day.